For 18 years, the Center for the Study of Extraterrestrial Intelligence, which is the parent project of the Disclosure Project, has been taking teams to train them to make contact with these visitors. And we have had multiple events happen where craft have appeared in the sky, hovered in the field, sent electromagnetic signals through our recording devices. We have 5 hours of electronic signals that we recorded just this past November at Joshua Tree National Park during a major contact event witnessed by 40 people. We know they're here. The question is, why aren't we responding appropriately? I'm a trauma doctor, emergency doctor, seen all this. And when you contemplate what's at stake here, you don't really give up on that. This is the pearl of great price. You don't throw this one back into the ocean. And so I get very frustrated sometimes. I've had people I've worked with assassinated, helping us get this far, I'll say that. But you don't give up. And there was a CIA operative who was very supportive of what we were doing, that back in the 90s, during some of the darkest days, after my closest friend, Sherry Adamak, was murdered by these people who were trying to keep this secret, that I wanted to give up, and I was very, very sad and very angry and also very depressed. And I was sent this card that was like a poster, 2 by 3 feet, and it had thousands of never, 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 never on it, and at the end, give up. And so I think of that is that you just can't give up. This is too big of an issue to just sort of walk away from, and there's really no sacrifice too large to get the truth out about something like this. And so, yes, I get frustrated, I get angry, there's been a lot of pain associated with it, and I'm very passionate about this, but there's no force on this planet that'll keep me from speaking the truth. They'll have to carry me out feet first in a coffin before I'll shut up about the truth here. And we have over 500 military, intelligence, and corporate people that have come forward to give us information and to take out of the national security vaults some of these documents that are in this briefing for President Obama that's going to be shown to the world on this program for the first time. The lunar module that took Neil Armstrong onto the surface of the moon, my uncle was the senior project engineer over that. So I knew about these things since I was 8 or 9 years old. The people on my team are people who have just positive proof and evidence that this is real. And this is why they're involved. It isn't like we're speculating here. If there's support for this, take people out to the desert and set up contact protocols and see what happens. It's about new energy and the transformation of our civilization from one that right now is headed over a cliff and needs to be brought back up, phoenix-like, from the ashes. We had put together a special presidential briefing for Barack Obama, and it has within it a lot of classified documents and information. And what we really want to do with this is create a groundswell so that the public supports having the president disclose this information to the extent that he can, but more importantly, provide protection to the people we have identified who can build these new energy technologies to bring us off of oil and gas and coal. We have their information and they want to cooperate. As the president hears from the people, he will then be moved to do an executive order to protect these sources inside the intelligence community who want this information out as much as I do, but who are now being prevented by this majestic group, the group that runs the covert projects, dealing with UFOs, alien reproduction vehicles, and new energy devices, technologies. The bottom line is every cubic centimeter of space, not outer space, but the space right here, has enough energy to run the Earth for one day. Every cubic centimeter of space. So there's an infinite amount of energy within the fabric of space-time. This has been known since the time of Tesla. And here we are still, 100 years into the automobile, over 100 years into coal-fired power plants, and we're still using that paradigm. And that's why we're melting the polar ice caps. That's why we have 80% of the world in poverty. That's why half the world lives on a couple dollars a day in unspeakable deprivation. And the only way that's going to change isn't through the zero-sum game of fossil fuels or, I hate to say it, solar and wind, because it's too expensive. You know why I know this? Because I'm a medical doctor and I cannot afford to turn my house into a solar or wind property. It would cost $200,000. The average American isn't going to spend that, and the village in China certainly isn't. This is an existential threat to the human race because you have people who would like to see us get into a conflict in space and who want to weaponize space, taking over something that should have always been the domain of our diplomats, our wise elders. In the course of this program, we will take this entire briefing document and go case by case and expand it and bring the most amazing top secret witnesses as well as documents to bear on this. I met with Senator Claiborne Pell when he was chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, and he told me he was interested in this stuff, but he was denied access to it, and he asked me to do a briefing for him, so I did. I then was told by the Director of Central Intelligence, James Woolsey, President Clinton's first CIA director, that he was denied access to this information, even though he knew the subject was real. I was the guy who put together the briefing for Clinton through the Rockefeller Initiative. That was my initiative. It was called Project Starlight. It had a code name. You can get the documents had just been released from the Clinton Library.
That's what we were hearing about it now.
Okay,
yeah,
and that's what, but the problem is no one understood what really happened there. What really happened is that Clinton's people were threatened when they tried to look into this. Okay, and Clinton then sent one of his good friends to my home and said, well, if the president does what you're recommending, he'll end up like Jack Kennedy. Now, this is in 1994, after I briefed a CIA director. You know, I was the guy who briefed Clinton's first CIA director on this subject. I was the guy. So what happened at that point is that, of course, my kids heard this, thought, my God, Dad, is this dangerous? I said, no, don't worry. I'm going, holy shit. But the bottom line is, we know that this is the big problem, is that the President of the United States was basically being told, go away, and if you push into this, we're going to take you out. I mean, I can say this with authority because I'm the only person living who can go on camera and say, I have personally briefed a sitting CIA director who was denied access, a sitting J2, head of intelligence joint staff, the guy who was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the largest intelligence gathering entity in the Pentagon, was personally denied access to these things. General Patrick Hughes. I was the guy who briefed him on all this. So, when you put that together, what you realize is that this is run amok. This is secrecy run amok, which is Eisenhower's warning to us. I mean, he was right. The old man was right. They have put weapons in space targeting these extraterrestrial vehicles. This we can prove. The weaponization of space is a huge problem because these weapons, the really advanced ones, are electromagnetic weapons that target these extraterrestrial vehicles and hit them and have knocked them down. We have people who have been on the retrieval teams.
Now, like Clifford Stone, was he on one of those?
Yeah, but we have a whole bunch of folks who've been on it. Now the question is, why are we doing this? Because there's a group of folks who would like to precipitate an interplanetary crisis so that they could amass more power in the world and have the whole world fund this sort of militaristic approach. And in fact, Douglas MacArthur, it's in the congressional record, said in his last address to the nation when he was in the well of the Congress, and he said, World War III will be interplanetary. They have put weapons in space targeting these extraterrestrial vehicles. This we can prove. I mean, I can say this with authority because I'm the only person living who can go on camera and say, I have personally briefed a sitting CIA director who was denied access, a sitting J2, head of intelligence joint staff, the guy who was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, the largest intelligence gathering entity in the Pentagon, was personally denied access to these things. General Patrick Hughes. I was the guy who briefed him on all this. So, when you put that together, what you realize is that this is run amok. This is secrecy run amok, which is Eisenhower's warning to us. I mean, he was right. The old man was right. Now the question is, why are we doing this? Because there's a group of folks who would like to precipitate an interplanetary crisis so that they could amass more power in the world and have the whole world fund this sort of militaristic approach. And in fact, Douglas MacArthur, it's in the congressional record, said in his last address to the nation when he was in the well of the Congress, and he said, World War III will be interplanetary. A lot of the mythology and the superstition and the stuff that's evolved in this subject has been embedded disinformation designed to create the specter of one or more species that are a threat. And that then justifies the secrecy, it justifies the weaponization of space. You can't ignore the fact that we're not alone in the universe. And who's taking care of that relationship? The State Department? No. The scientists that are on my team, and many of them, are people who have actually built the reproduction vehicles that run on so-called anti-gravity and electromagnetic free energy. A really important episode, or several episodes of this, has got to be uncovering the counterintelligence operations that hoax ET events, that engage in abductions and things like this. They're totally paramilitary operations designed for their psychological warfare value. I'm quoting from a CIA document. There is absolutely no threat in outer space. If it was a threat, I mean, imagine this. You have the ability to travel through interstellar distances with technologies faster than the speed of light. If they were hostile, you think we'd still be breathing the free air of Earth here? No. The bottom line is that all of this alien invasion stuff is part of a psychological conditioning propaganda experiment. Because if you create enough fear and enough prejudice against a group, in this case, aliens, in the future, people accept the costs of war. It's time for this information to be disclosed and for a new civilization on Earth to be established. That's what this is about. A sustainable civilization, an abundant civilization, and a civilization that can travel among the stars peacefully. It's happening now.
Yeah, that's what we love about it.
Okay?
Right.
This is an unfolding adventure.
If for some reason you weren't going to be here tomorrow and you wanted to leave a message to your children or to your grandchildren, what would that be? What is your life's lesson?
Well, the message I would leave to my children and grandchildren is this, that no matter how difficult the near term is, the horizon that we see that's approaching very quickly is one of unspeakably wonderful beauty. A civilization on this planet that's going to be living in abundance and universal peace, and that will go in this state of enlightenment amongst the stars. That's the destiny of the human race, and it's something that we have wanted and known in our inner soul for millennia. And now the time for that has arrived. And not to despair in the dark days that we are in right now as we go through this bumpy transition from the old world to the new. Because the new world is emerging around us, and its fulfillment and this time is assured. It's not whether it's going to happen, it's only when. And the when is very soon.
Are you afraid for your life?
I've never been afraid. I know.
Ready for your boss?
Yeah, sure. I'm done with the salad. Thank you.
Be right back. You've never been afraid?
Not because I don't think there's a risk. It's because I'm not the kind of person who is afraid. You know, look, I'm an emergency doctor that's taking care of 16-year-old kids who've been killed because someone patted their girlfriend's fanny on the ass. I've seen such carnage over ephemera, just dumb stuff, that if you're not willing to put your neck out for something this important, universal peace, interplanetary relations, a new civilization that has no pollution, free energy, abundance for the elimination of poverty in the world, if you're not willing to take a risk for that, you don't have a soul. I mean, you're not worthy of breathing the free air of Earth. And that's what this is about. It's changing. So, Mr. Obama wanted change. I got change for you. Some real change. So fasten your seatbelts, because this is the biggest transformation in the history of the human race about to happen.
Thank you. That was great. I love when you get fired.
Yeah. It's the Scottish in me.